A very good evening to everyone. So the agenda of the session is to give you a brief overview that how we should proceed with the answer writing when it comes down to sociology. See, there is a very famous quote by Albert Einstein which says that you should know the rules of the game and then you should play better than anyone else. So the objective of this session is to tell you the rules of the game. But once the session is over, now it will be on you to play your game at the best possible level. Is that very clear? Okay. Now, before we proceed, there is a common thing which I have noticed. That one, we don't realize the gravity of the situation that optional is the most indispensable component. And the marks which are riding on optional is like 500. And not only 500, you have a possibility to score 300 plus. So it has created a lot of scope for you to score in this paper. But we don't take this aspect seriously. And why am I saying this is? One, many a times we delay the preparation of optional. That should not be the case. Let us suppose you have prepared your optional well, whichever way, self-study or joining any coaching institute, whatsoever it is. Then you delay the process of answer writing. That also becomes a challenge. Third, even if you are trying to write the answers, you are not working on the feedback which is being given to you. Any of these three things that you are not fulfilling, scoring 300 plus would be a challenge. But let's keep a very realistic target. 275 is our bottom line. Anything above that is good enough, right? 300 plus is great. Your possibilities of getting selected has increased by leaps and bounds. But if I have to give you a bottom line, that is the minimum score, that should not be less than 275. So the agenda for the session is to make you understand how to proceed or how to approach this strategy of scoring at least 275 in this paper. Is that very clear for everyone? Okay. Can I assume that we have a basic idea of what is sociology? As in you've studied something. This session is purely on answer writing. Okay. Now, if I have to reach the level of answer writing, the first thing that I would like each one of you to focus is on the syllabus. Many a times it happens, I will tell you one thing. If you are doing self-study, you still focus on the syllabus. But if you are taking, let us say, coaching or something, we completely rely on the mentors or the teachers, that we don't bother to go through the syllabus. That should not be the strategy. See, ultimately it is your exam. It is your preparation, your future. You need to own it. So first and foremost thing is, do a detailed coverage of your syllabus. और मैं ये सिर्फ कहने के लिए नहीं कह रही, I'll prove it कि क्यों करना है. Because my syllabus is going to tell me what needs to be the subject of study. So what should be the basis or what needs to be studied, that would be told to me by my syllabus. Once I know my syllabus, the second step would be I will be moving to PYQs. See the irony? I have yet not started preparing sociology and I'm moving to PYQs. That is usually our strategy once we have covered and then we approach the PYQ. I am telling you the reverse strategy. Start with your syllabus because it has told you what is supposed to be studied. The second thing is your PYQs. This will tell me जो पढ़ना है उसको कैसे पढ़ना है. So once you know your syllabus, once you know the PYQs from that topic, now I will be approaching what is known as making of notes. Once I have done my note making, then I am going to supplement it with topper's script. and then I will proceed, or I will start with my answer writing. I have been receiving so many mails and queries, and that is why I thought once and for all, we'll discuss what needs to be done. The basic question is how to start. Many a times it has happened, people have done their coaching, the classes are over, yet they are in that situation where they are not able to decide now what, how to proceed. So the first thing is read your syllabus. Then you study the PYQs. Based on that, go for your note making, then supplement with topper script, and finally start your answer writing. Now let's just have a look what I mean by this. Let us suppose this is the syllabus. This is how the syllabus looks like. ऐसे ही देता है. There is a topic, theories of social stratification. दिख रहा है? Structural functionalist theory, Marxist theory, Weberian theory. ये दिखा सबको? Theories of stratification. I thought let's look at the kind of questions which has been asked from this topic in past year. Syllabus में क्या लिखा था? Theories of stratification. Structural functionalist, Marxist and Weberian perspective. See the question. How do Karl Marx and Max Weber differ in their terms of analysis of social stratification? Differentiate between the theory of stratification. What is Weberian critique of Marxist notion of social stratification? Compare and contrast the contribution of Marx and Weber on social stratification in capitalist society. तो मैं आपको बता रही हूँ, पहले हमने syllabus पढ़ा, उससे related these are the PYQs. ठीक है? Can I say, let's prepare the topic. This is your first stage of note making. You start with a definition of social stratification. You start with Marxian theory of stratification. You give the premise that what was social stratification based on as per Marxist perspective. What are the key components of Marxian perspective of stratification? Whether it was division of labor, basis of stratification, class conflict. Did you understand what we are trying to say? Or other classes of future of stratification. Then can we say we have to talk about criticism of Marxian view? Once you've done the critique part, then Weberian theory of stratification, how it was multidimensional Trinitarian model. Three concepts, class, status and power. Then we'll talk about criticism of Weberian's perspective. Difference between Weber and Marxian perspective. Try to prepare it from as many parameters as possible. We will not stop here. Similarity between the two. क्योंकि question बनता है ना compare and contrast. So you are not only just telling the differences, you also have to tell the similarities. Just prepare 3-4 points, but you should have the points. And where did I get this idea from? Previous year questions. Once we are done with that, please end all the theories on this note. Contemporary relevance. So contemporary relevance of Marxian theory, Weberian theory, and overall conclusion. Did you understand how note making is done? That's the first stage of note making. ये पहला stage है note making का. But note making का structure, there are many times I get the mail, how do you make those flow charts? आपको कैसे पता चलता है कि इस topic के ये flow charts हैं? तो मैं कोई ऐसे नहीं, just through the PYQs, you get to know. Did you understand आपको flow chart मिल गया? That how you are supposed to prepare the topic, and you got this idea from your PYQs. But again, I'm reiterating, this is a detailed note. That is the first level of note making. ये आपका final note making नहीं होना चाहिए, because before the examination you will not be able to revise this. So this is the first stage of note making, where based on your PYQs you have created broad structures. Is it making sense for everyone? Now, let's just look at this point. There is a topic, emergence of sociology, in your paper. है ना topic? These are the previous year questions. How did intellectual forces lead to emergence of sociology? How had enlightenment contributed to emergence of sociology? What aspects of enlightenment do you think has paved way for emergence of sociology? Discuss the historical antecedents with respect to emergence of sociology. Europe was the first and only place where modernity emerged. Did you get the point? एक document तैयार करना है and you will be able to answer all the questions. Now, when your first reading is done, then you make notes like this. फर्स्ट रीडिंग के नोट्स बहुत डिटेल्ड होते हैं, द वन आई शोड यू. बट वेन यू मेक योर नोट्स सेकेंड टाइम, क्यों? The first time when you make notes, you have to do a detailed thing because you would be reading it, learning it for the first time. So you would not be knowing how to fill in the blanks, right? So in that context, detailed notes are required. But once you have learned, once you have understood the concept, once you know the chronology of the topic, now you can go for second stage of note making, and that is like this. For example, what are the possible factors responsible for emergence? It can be social factor, political factor, economic factor, and intellectual factor. All these things created grounds for modernity in Europe. But at the same time, the challenges also emerged. And existing discipline was not able to address those challenges. Hence, there was a need for a separate discipline to address the problems, which created grounds for emergence of sociology. As simple as that. पर अगर हमको ये चीजें पता हैं, ये तभी possible हैं. Then, within intellectual forces, we can talk about scientific revolution, we can talk about Renaissance. Within Renaissance, what are the main points that you can quote? ये सेकेंड स्टेज होती है, क्योंकि फर्स्ट स्टेज में तो आपको पता ही नहीं होगा कि रैशनैलिटी से क्या मतलब है, ठीक है, या डेकार्ट ने क्या बोला है, ठीक है, या डेविड ह्यूम का क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है. सो यू वुड नॉट बी नोइंग दिस इन योर फर्स्ट रीडिंग, बट वंस यू नो ऑल ऑफ दिस, देन मेकिंग सच नोट्स बिकम्स easy. Within social factors, then you can talk about the situational points, you can also talk about the religious reforms. Similarly, French Revolution and Industrial Revolution. Now, all these developments created certain social problems, and all these social problems lead to crisis of modernity, which led to emergence of sociology. Did you get the point? Did you understand how the note making has to be done? Is this clear till here? Similarly, there is another topic, development and dependency. These are the assess, ये तो इसी साल का है. Assess critically Andre Gundre Frank's theory of development of underdevelopment. Critically examine the contribution of dependency theory in understanding the present global scenario. Technology has accelerated the process of development and dependency. And finally, the same question has been repeated. Is that clear? Again, simple. Once you've understood what is development, what are different perspectives on development, dependency culture according to Charles Murray perspective, then what was the perspective of classic economist, how it was challenged by dependency perspective. Within dependency, we can talk about Prebisch, we can talk about Andre Gundre Frank, we can talk about Immanuel Wallerstein. When you are talking about Immanuel Wallerstein, this is the core semi-periphery theory. And finally, the critique. Did you get the point? But we will not stop here. Present day relevance of the dependency theory. Theory पे चाहे पहले ऐसा क्वेश्चन आया हो या नहीं आया हो, the last point to cover is contemporary relevance. Because in past they have been asking such questions and they can still ask these questions. तो आज के टाइम पे वैक्सीन नेशनलिज्म, COVID-19 pandemic, or for that matter, China's checkbook diplomacy. These are nothing but the version of dependency theory. Is that making sense for everyone? Is it clear? जैसे इस बार पूछा ना, historical materialism and contemporary relevance. Contemporary relevance is their favorite thing. Whenever you study any theory, give yourself half an hour more. Just jot down 3 to 4 points which can be written in the answer with respect to contemporary relevance. Till here is everything clear? ठीक है. Now, when I talk about PYQs, the important aspect is one, they gave us the direction. That's the best thing. That at least I know that within my flowchart, what would be the broad topics under which I have to prepare. That's a good thing. Second most important thing is, that is my observation, and if you've seen your 10-20-year paper, you will also understand that 60 to 70% of the paper is repeated. Is that clear? ठीक है, majority of the themes are repeated every year. If I ask you about this year's paper, did you get time to go through 2023 का paper? Sociology paper 2 was extremely doable. It was very easily approachable. In fact, the questions like child labor, aging, honor killing, everything was there from this year's test series. So if we can predict, so can you also predict. So sociology paper 2 was extremely doable. That was not a challenge at all. If you go through the questions, you will realize. In sociology paper 1, there were few questions which might have posed some challenge. For example, David Morgan's perspective on family practices, or dramaturgical methodology, or the theory of Irving Goffman, that can be a challenge. But chalo, ye do question to prima facie challenging lage. But there were other questions also which could have posed the challenge. For example, there was a question on Weber's bureaucracy, that how it is rooted in the changes which happened in Europe. Now, ab dekho, hum bureaucracy kaise padhte hain? What is power? Authority, legal rational authority. Within that you have bureaucracy. What are the features of bureaucracy, significance of bureaucracy, and the critique? हम कभी ये पढ़ते ही नहीं कि why Weber in first place gave the theory of bureaucracy and where it is rooted. तो वो देखने में simple question लगा रही, ये तो Weber का bureaucracy है. But when you exactly try to understand the demand of the question, it might be slightly challenging. There was a very simple question. What is a function of religion in pluralistic society? जहां हम लिखना बंद करते हैं, यूपीएससी ने वहां से सवाल किया. हम फंक्शनल पर्सपेक्टिव को क्या कह के क्रिटिक करते हैं? कि it is well suited for the society which are simple or which have single religion. The real challenge occurs when it is a pluralistic society. उन्होंने वो तो पूछा ही नहीं, यहां से क्वेश्चन स्टार्ट हुआ. What is the function of religion in a pluralistic society? Did you understand? Another very interesting question. What is the relevance of CSR in the world which is determined by environmental crisis? Did you understand the point? ठीक है, सबको पता है कि क्या आंसर हो सकता है, लेकिन इस एंगल से शायद नहीं सोचा होगा. You have to be prepared for such questions. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. But now the point is that ठीक है, ये कितने क्वेश्चन हुए? 5. एक आध और मिल जाएंगे, 7 क्वेश्चन. There are 28 questions. And until and unless it is not the compulsory question, otherwise, other than that, other things are not a challenge. You have a choice to eliminate those questions which you don't know. What I'm just trying to say is, rather than bothering, अब लोगों को क्या है, ये डेविड मॉर्गन कहाँ से पढ़ना है, ये कैसे करना है, अरे पहले मार्क्स, वेबर, पार्सन, मर्टन ये तो कर लो, मॉर्गन कर लेंगे बाद में, और कौन सी बड़ी बात है अगले साल के अगले 5 साल मॉर्गन पे सवाल नहीं आना. So the point here is, are you getting what I'm trying to say? Rather than getting worried about that 10% of the paper which you are not able to predict ये कहाँ से आया, focus more on that 90% of the paper which is very much within your reach. Because every year 1 or 2 odd questions would be of this nature, and that is why I tell the students that please focus on paper 2. पेपर 2 में हमें क्यों चैलेंजिंग लगता है? क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि पेपर 2 में जीएस बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, विदाउट रियलाइजिंग कि अगर थ्योरी अच्छी है तो जीएस बेस्ड को सोशियोलॉजिकल बनाया जा सकता है. वो मैं आज सिखा दूंगी, ठीक है. लेकिन सोशियोलॉजी पेपर 1 में जो क्वेश्चंस आते हैं वो थ्योरेटिकल होते हैं, या तो आते हैं या नहीं आते हैं. Did you get the point? So actually you should focus more on sociology paper 2. Having said that, cover your theoretical portion from sociology paper 1. वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं हो सकता. जैसे कि आपका यूनिट 4 सोशियोलॉजिकल थिंकर्स करें, उसके बाद के हर यूनिट में एक लाइन होती है थ्योरी ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स, थ्योरी ऑफ रिलीजन, थ्योरी ऑफ स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन, थ्योरी ऑफ सोशल चेंज. ये जो थ्योरेटिकल कॉम्पोनेंट है, दैट हैज टू बी ऑन योर टिप्स. आफ्टर दैट योर फोकस शुड शिफ्ट ऑन sociology paper 2, because sociology paper 2 gives you the scope of innovation. It gives you the scope of creativity. It gives you the scope कि whatever knowledge you have accumulated, you can apply that knowledge. लेकिन सोशो पेपर 1 में अगर आपको थ्योरी नहीं आती, you can't bluff on that. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. Now, So this other part is that these previous year questions, they are telling us that often the questions are repeated. They gave us an idea what is the demand of UPSC and what are the nature of the questions. Many a times students ask, how should I gauge my performance? How should I gauge my level of preparation? There is only one criteria, one barometer. If you are able to solve previous 10 years, that means you are very well prepared. And if you are able to solve previous 5 years, you are good to go. So target should be 10 years. Nahi kar pa rahe ho to at least 5 years. 2019 onwards, if you are able to solve the questions which have been asked in UPSC, trust me, you are good to go. You can score 275 plus. क्योंकि अगर 10 नंबर का एक कंपलसरी क्वेश्चन या 2 कंपलसरी क्वेश्चन नहीं भी आया, कुछ तो लिख कर आओगे, ठीक है, कुछ तो रेलेवेंट लिख के आओगे. चलो मान लेते वो भी नहीं लिखा, BC नंबर का तो छूटा. उसके अलावा क्या? So please solve your PYQs very thoroughly. That is the barometer to gauge to what extent you are prepared for this examination. Is this very clear for everyone? ठीक है. Another aspect, मैं सिर्फ देख ही रही थी कि there is this topic historical materialism. What is historical materialism? Examine its relevance in understanding contemporary society. This year's question. Analyze Marxian conception of historical materialism as a critique of Hegelian dialectics. Analyze the salient feature of historical materialism. I'm giving you 1 minute. Tell me what would be the flowchart to prepare for the topic. The topic is historical materialism. How will you prepare? Context of historical materialism, first thing, तो उसमें Hegel का dialectics आ जाएगा. It was as a critique to that. Second, what is historical materialism? What are the salient feature? What are the critique of historical materialism? What is the contemporary relevance? जब तक ये 5 चीजें नहीं तैयार हो, historical materialism is not prepared. Is that very clear for everyone? Did you understand how it is supposed to be done? Read the questions. Science and technology are major sources accelerating the process of social change. Examine science and technology as the agent of social change. Critically analyze the role of science and technology in bringing about social change. कोई और क्वेश्चन आया? यही इसी तरह के क्वेश्चन है. One of the way of preparing can be, what is technology? How technology brings about the change in the society, how the technology has brought about the change in the positive connotation, political, economic, education, demographic, family, religion, women, work, stratification, add theories, whichever we know, and then what is the negative aspect of change. Once you have discussed that, what should be the overall concluding remark? If you make your notes like this, it becomes easy to revise. Is it making sense for everyone? Is it clear for everyone? Can we proceed to the next thing? Now comes the idea, importance of note making, which I know many of us are not doing. Okay. Now, let me just make the doubt very clear. Choose any one source. I know you guys are facing a lot of difficulties. Okay. Choose any one source, whichever source you are comfortable with, but that are not your notes. That is the starting point of your preparation. Whether you choose IGNOU, whether you are choosing Harry-Lombus, whether you are choosing Nitin Sangwan, whether you are choosing your respective coaching institute notes, whatever it is the starting point of your preparation. Is that clear? Choose any one source. Once you have chosen that source, you very well know what kind of questions have been asked from the topic. You have already prepared the flowchart. If you get the answers for that flowchart from that source, good enough, add that there. If you don't get it, search it on the internet. Is that very clear? And create your own notes. आपको दिक्कत यही आ रही है ना, कितनी किताबों से पढ़ें, तो मैं उसको once and for all clear कर देती हूँ. कोई भी एक सोर्स उठा लो. जो आपके लिए कन्वीनियंट हो, बट वो आपके नोट्स नहीं होंगे, ये ध्यान रखना। तो वो पॉइंट अगर उसमें नहीं है, देन यू हैव टू सर्च इट फ्रॉम द इंटरनेट दैट व्हाट नीड्स टू बी रिटन अंडर दिस हेडिंग। सो योर टास्क स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम गोइंग थ्रू योर syllabus, making your flowcharts based on PYQs and filling of those PYQs, the flowcharts that you have made, that is the process of note making. It can be done by choosing one source that would be your fundamental source and adding more content from different sources. Is that very clear for everyone? पहली चीज। दूसरी चीज, मैं प्रेफर करती हूँ हैंड रिटन नोट्स। आप कैसे भी बनाएं वो आपकी चॉइस, पर मेरा पर्सनल प्रेफरेंस होता है हैंड रिटन नोट्स, एंड आई टेल यू द रीजन। व्हेन यू स्टार्ट मेकिंग हैंड रिटन नोट्स, यू विल नेवर फॉरगेट, बिकॉज आप कट कॉपी पेस्ट नहीं कर रहे, सो द टेंडेंसी ऑफ नॉट फॉरगेटिंग इज वेरी हाई। दूसरा, कॉम्प्रिहेंशन इंक्रीजेस, क्योंकि जब आप लिखते हो ना खुद से, तो आप समझ के लिखते हो, तो जिस पॉइंट पे आपको समझ नहीं आएगा ना, यू विल क्वेश्चन दैट व्हाई एम आई नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड। लेकिन अगर आप टाइप्ड नोट्स बनाते हो, चांसेस ऑफ कट कॉपी पेस्ट इज वेरी हाई, चांसेस ऑफ नॉट अंडरस्टैंडिंग। फिर आप क्या करते हो, रटने की कोशिश करते हो, और रटोगे तो एक चीज है, या तो याद रहेगा या नहीं रहेगा, लेकिन एप्लीकेशन नहीं कर पाओगे, क्योंकि रटी हुई चीजों की एप्लीकेशन नहीं होती। Until and unless you've understood the concept, you cannot go for application. Is that very clear? And that is why I say, if you don't understand your sociology paper 1, how will you apply it in sociology paper 2? Did you get the point? क्योंकि वैसे सोशियोलॉजी पेपर 2 में थिंकर्स मिलते नहीं हैं, तो हम किसके भरोसे हैं, सोशियोलॉजी पेपर 1 के। वो तब तक नहीं हो सकता इफ यू नॉट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट। सो इट्स एन एडवाइस, हैंड रिटन नोट्स बनाओ, पहली चीज। दूसरी चीज, जब हम हैंड रिटन नोट्स बनाते हैं, इट इज वेरी टायरिंग। शुरू में जोश होता है, बट आफ्टर दैट यू स्टार्ट गेटिंग बोर्ड। एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम द क्रिएटिव एस्पेक्ट ऑफ योर पर्सनैलिटी विल बी अनलीस्ड, बिकॉज जब आपके पास टायर्ड होगे, टाइम नहीं होगा, तो आप क्या करोगे, आप डायग्राम्स बनाना शुरू कर दोगे कि अच्छा इसमें मैं ये लिख दूंगा, ये लिख दूंगा, ये लिख दूंगा, या अच्छा मिडिल रेंज थ्योरी है तो इट इज अलायंस ऑफ 3 एस्पेक्ट, तो मैं एक ट्रायंगल बना दूंगा। लेटेंट मैनिफेस्ट दिखाना है तो मैं एक डायग्राम बना दूंगा। ये क्यों आ रहा है, क्योंकि पूरा पूरा लिखने का मन नहीं है। तो जब मन नहीं हुआ, तो यू आर रिजॉर्टिंग टू अ मेथड विच इज इनेबलिंग यू टू मेक द डायग्राम्स इन सोशियोलॉजी पेपर। नहीं तो बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स पूछते हैं, मैम ये डायग्राम कहाँ मिलेंगे? मिलते नहीं हैं। कुछ स्टैंडर्ड डायग्राम्स हैं, वो आपको किताबों में मिल जाएंगे, बट मेनी अ टाइम्स इट इज एक्चुअली क्रिएटेड बाय द स्टूडेंट ऑन द स्पॉट। ऑन द स्पॉट से मतलब व्हेन यू आर मेकिंग योर नोट्स, नॉट द एग्जाम। इज दैट मेकिंग वेरी, मतलब इज इट क्लियर फॉर एवरीवन? ठीक है। दूसरी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज, जब हम नोट मेकिंग करते हैं ना, दैट इज द टाइम जब जो चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं होती हैं, हम उसको हटा देते हैं। कभी देखना, जब तुम टाइप कर रहे हो तो यू आर ऑलवेज हैविंग अ टेंडेंसी, ये भी डाल देते हैं क्या पता काम आ जाए, ये भी डाल देते हैं क्या पता काम आ जाए। लेकिन जब हैंड रिटन नोट्स बना रहे हो, यू ऑलवेज हैव अ टेंडेंसी, ये लिखना है क्या, इज दिस इंपॉर्टेंट? सो एट दैट टाइम यू लर्न द आर्ट ऑफ प्रायोरिटाइजिंग and you weed out all the content which is not relevant from that topic's perspective. Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है। Now, if I look, a very simple thing, can we see latent and manifest? Earlier functionalists looked at manifest function only but ignored the unintended ones. Merton has modified by combining the psychological and socio-cultural aspect. It refers to the micro approach studied by non-positivist methods. Manifest का क्या मतलब है, latent का क्या मतलब है, एक example. Is that clear? ठीक है। Now, what is the significance of latent and manifest? ऐसे ही पढ़ते, ठीक है। And finally, diagram भी बन गया। एग्जाम में दिखाना था, लेटेंट और मैनिफेस्ट पे आया था, ठीक है। सो इफ आई मेक दिस डायग्राम, दिस इज मैनिफेस्ट, दिस इज लेटेंट। मीडिया, मैनिफेस्ट इज एंटरटेनमेंट, मेकिंग पॉलिटिकली एक्टिव सिटीजनरी, स्ट्रेंथनिंग डेमोक्रेसी इज latent. Similarly, school का manifest is education, latent is socialization or institutionalization of hierarchy. Beauty pageants, judgment of personality or beauty enforces patriarchy or control over woman's body, basically commodification and objectification. Are you getting the point? ठीक है। So this is how, similarly, this is the most common diagram which we often use when it comes down to Merton. But I'll just suggest one thing. जब आप ये diagram बना रहे हो, ठीक है? If the question is on the theory of deviance of Merton, anyway you have to explain all these things, right? So when you make this diagram, use this diagram to write the example, so that you are judicially utilizing the space. तो कहने का मतलब है, how do you learn all these things when you are making your own notes? Otherwise this would become a challenge at the time of examination. अभी last year तक क्या होता था कि sociology paper 1 20 marker 4 sides were given. This year only 3 sides were given. Did you get the point? So anything can happen in UPSC. You have to be prepared for such changes. ठीक है? So in less space you have to incorporate more options. Similarly, see this one example. Everyone is aware of Auguste Comte's theory of change. Can we make this diagram? Theological, metaphysical and positivistic. What is the time period? Which was the ruling class? What was the dominant social unit? And what was the prevailing sentiment? Through this, can we in one look are giving an idea to the examiner that this is the theory of Auguste Comte, that is evolutionary theory of change. Is that making sense for everyone? But now comes the important point, how to prepare notes as far as sociology paper 2 is concerned. ठीक है? So now what is, if you have the access to that Telegram channel, so very regularly we would be updating the current based topics. For example, recently this was in news, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan died. He is known as father of Green Revolution. So again, the chances of asking question on Green Revolution is very probable, but that is not the thing. Such kind of questions are often asked. So wo baat nahi thi. The presentation. Green Revolution, functional aspect and dysfunctional. Within functional, structural and cultural. Dysfunctional, structural and cultural. Did you get the point? We are just trying to make GS based question look sociological. So again, एक और चीज बताती हूँ. I think इसमें दे नहीं रखा या आगे दे रखा होगा. I'll just tell you. There are few theories which has lot of significance when it comes down to applied part. For example, Yogendra Singh. Yogendra Singh has given a theory of social change, that is that integrative approach, structural and cultural level, macro context and micro. It becomes easy to write an answer from a sociological perspective using Yogendra Singh. Similarly, Yogendra Singh has given a perspective law as an agent of social change. So that can be applied in other areas if the application based question is asked. So there are some theories which has lot of application. Try to prepare those application. Automatically the answer would become more sociological. I'll give you more example when I reach that topic. The second thing which was in news, women reservation. It has been passed. Very probable chances of asking the question. In the support of the act, what are the perspectives? And what are the perspectives which goes against the act? So how to prepare this? You have access to current affair magazines. You have access to current developments which are happening. You might be reading newspaper every day. रोज तो नहीं आता, लेकिन अगर आ रहा है, तो there would be one odd social issues. उसी वक्त social issue को pick करो. Just try to frame a question. What kind of question it can be asked from this topic? And in that respect, prepare a short note. That is how the current based topics have to be prepared. Is that very clear? In fact, I'll tell you something. मैं सिर्फ नोट्स दे सकती हूँ, पढ़ना आपको है. मैंने टेलीग्राम चैनल पे ये लास्ट ईयर डाला था क्योंकि न्यूज़ में था. इस साल का क्वेश्चन है ना, व्हाट इज एजिंग एंड व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स फेस्ड बाय एजेड पीपल. देखो सोशियोलॉजिकल पर्सपेक्टिव से डाला है. डिसएंगेजमेंट थ्योरी है, मॉडर्नाइजेशन थ्योरी है, सिंबॉलिक पर्सपेक्टिव है, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट पर्सपेक्टिव है. आपको पढ़ के जाना था बस. एग्जैक्ट क्वेश्चन हैज बीन आस्क्ड. सिमिलरली मैंने इसीलिए ये डाला. मैंने लास्ट ईयर ये भी डाला था चाइल्ड लेबर पे. इस साल क्वेश्चन आया है. सो मैं सिर्फ कंटेंट दे सकती हूं, पढ़ना आप ही को है. ठीक है? आई कैन टेल यू द रूल्स, यू हैव टू प्ले इट बेटर. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? तो बहुत सारा क्या होता है ना, आप लोग ग्रुप ज्वाइन कर लेते हो, कंटेंट कलेक्ट कर लेते हो और फिर बस उसको कलेक्ट ही करते हो. तो उससे फार बेटर है कि वापस जाओ, आइडेंटिफाई करो, दीज आर द मिनिमम पॉसिबल थिंग्स विच आई विल डू. आई विल नॉट स्टडी एवरीथिंग फॉर सोशियोलॉजी, दैट्स नॉट रिक्वायर्ड. इनफैक्ट आई thoroughly believe that stick to one source, clear your concepts, solve your PYQs and practice answer writing, and you're done with it. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. So just make an effort to read this content. Again, national education policy. Question है इस बार, ठीक है? And I'll tell you how to answer that. But everything was there in the current affair content. But the point is, we were supposed to read that. See the questions. What is aging? Discuss the major problems of aged people in India. What actionable measures would you suggest to curb the recurrent child labor menace? Highlight the salient features of new education policy. Are all the questions there? Okay. This was just an example that everything was there, you just need to read. Okay. So this is how the background has to be done. And now we will be talking about the answer writing. But before we proceed, did you get the clarity how the note making has to be done? Did you understand how PYQs have to be referred? Did you understand how the flowcharts has to be created? यहाँ तक तो कोई doubt नहीं है, ठीक है? करोगे, ठीक है? See, जैसा ठीक लगे बस, लेकिन करना, ठीक है? PYQs को समझ के फ्लो चार्ट्स बना के अपने नोट्स बनाना. एंड ट्रस्ट मी, पहली बार मेहनत लगेगी, लेकिन एक बार अच्छे नोट्स बन गए ना, फिर यू जस्ट हैव टू रिवाइज इट. सो योर जॉब विल बिकम मच ईजियर. और ये बड़ी अच्छी बात है कि आपके हाउ शुड आई पुट इट, कि एक बार अच्छे नोट्स बन जाते हैं तो जो ऑप्शनल होता है ना, उसमें रादर देन नोट्स बढ़ने के, नोट्स कम होते जाते हैं, क्योंकि आपको चीज़ें याद होने लग जाती हैं, एक के बाद एक वही सेम चीज़ें आती हैं, तो आप फ्लो चार्ट्स बनाने लग जाते हो. और थोड़े दिनों बाद आप रियलाइज करोगे कि एक सिंगल बुकलेट में द एंटायर पेपर हैज़ बीन कवर्ड थ्रू फ्लो चार्ट्स, एंड दैट हैज़ टू बी योर टारगेट बिफोर योर एग्जामिनेशन. इज दिस वेरी क्लियर फॉर एवरीवन? ठीक. सी, as far as answer writing is concerned, let me just tell you how we are going to proceed. There are two aspects in any answer writing. Any answer that you write has two aspects. One is the context in which the answer has to be written, and other is the content that you are going to write. One thing, do you realize that your and my content can be very different? Let us say the question is on theory only. Even then it can differ. For example, which critique you are writing, I may not be writing the same critique. You might be writing some other contemporary relevance example, I would be writing something else. So content can vary. What cannot vary for both of us is the context. And many a times we falter when it comes down to context. Context, so first I'll discuss the context part and then I'll come to the content part. In the context part, there are 4 things which define the context of the question. The first is the keyword, second is theory, application or the combination, third is the subpart, and fourth is the essence. I will start with the keywords. Many a time we have an idea that what's the significance of the keyword, since every keyword appears to be very similar to each other. So we think that there is no significance as far as keyword is concerned. But if you ask me, this actually defines that how I am supposed to write the answer. This year, there is a question on middle class. Elaborate on the salient features of middle class and the role of middle class in democracy and development. Simple, ठीक है? What should be the broad structure of this answer? I'm not asking the answer, just give me the structure. What is middle class? ठीक है, then? ठीक है, चलो. Salient features of middle class, then? Sociological theories, ठीक है, और? Then you're talking about the relevance. Do we realize that we have a general tendency, and often we are being asked, that जो भी question हो, counter argument लिख देना. End करने से just पहले critique दे देना. But the question was elaborate. Elaborate on the salient features of middle class. Elaborate on the role of middle class in development and democracy. Elaborate. Elaborate matlab you assume the given thing to be true. And you are not going to pass any judgment on that. As a result, you are not going to write the counter argument. So you don't have to criticize middle class. बट हमें क्या लगता है, सेफ साइड में एक लाइन में लिख देते ना, क्या ही फर्क पड़ेगा. आप जगह भी खराब कर रहे हो, आप एग्जामिनर को ये भी बता रहे हो कि आपको नहीं समझ आया एलैबोरेट का मतलब, और उसके आपको कुछ एक्स्ट्रा नहीं मिलना है. पर हमें क्या लगता है, हर क्वेश्चन में सेफ साइड में एक काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट तो दे ही देते हैं. पूछा आपसे किसी ने. सो द पॉइंट हियर इज डू नॉट राइट एनीथिंग विच हैज नॉट बीन आस्क्ड. इसीलिए तो एलैबोरेट दिया, नहीं तो डिस्कस लिख देते. उन्होंने किसी वजह से एग्जामिन लिख देते, एनालाइज लिख देते, ठीक है, बट दे रोट इलैबोरेट बिकॉज दे डोंट वांट यू टू वेस्ट योर टाइम ऑन राइटिंग द काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर फॉर एवरीवन? ठीक है. नेक्स्ट इज डिफाइन. नाउ डिफाइन इज बेसिकली, यूजुअली ये कब आता है, डिफाइन टर्म तभी पूछा जाता है व्हेन अ स्पेसिफिक कॉन्सेप्ट हैज मोर देन वन इंटरप्रिटेशन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, डिफाइन एथनिसिटी. Ethnicity has different perspective. Barth has a different definition. Max Weber has a different definition. Erikson has a different definition. Michael Brown has a different definition. There are different approaches to understand the concept of ethnicity. So any topic which has more than one interpretation, often the word define is used. So the purpose of define is you give the definition which is the precise version to explain the concept, and in case there is any issue with that definition, then you give one more supplementary explanation. Is that very clear? For example, define civil society. Did you get the point? Define patriarchy. Often in such questions there are more than one perspectives or definitions which are existing. So chances of asking define is very high. Is it making sense for everyone? Second is discuss. Very common. इसी बार 7 questions में आया है. So discuss, मैं actually ऐसे इस बार का पेपर एनालाइज कर रही थी, तो मैं देख रही थी कि कौन सा कीवर्ड, तो मैंने एक्चुअली देखा ये डिस्कस इतनी बार पूछते हैं. सो देन आई रियलाइज्ड कि दिस इज द मोस्ट कॉमन एंड द इजीएस्ट वे टू अप्रोच. बट देयर इज वन थंब रूल इन डिस्कशन. यू ऑलवेज हैव टू कंक्लूड. Okay, conclusion हर आंसर में लिखते हैं, but this time I'm saying you have to conclude. What I mean is whatever you have discussed in your answer, based on that you have to arrive at a conclusion. So that conclusion should be relevant to the discussion that you have written in your answer. Randomly you cannot write any conclusion. जैसे बहुत बार होता है ना, we prepare the introduction and conclusions beforehand so that we are not wasting our time. But in questions of the nature of discuss, whatever discussion has been done, based on that discussion, the conclusion has to be arrived. अब मुद्दा आता है कि discussion कैसे किया जाता है. Discussion is nothing but a written debate, where you have to present your case for the motion or अगेंस्ट द मोशन, ठीक है. बट लेट अस सपोज उस क्वेश्चन में फॉर और अगेंस्ट है ही नहीं, देन यू राइट एडवांटेजेस एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस. लेट अस सपोज एडवांटेजेस और डिसएडवांटेजेस भी नहीं मिल रहे हैं, वैसा क्वेश्चन ही नहीं है बट डिस्कस करने को कह दिया है. तो ट्राई टू डिस्कस का मतलब होता है एग्जामिन इन डिटेल. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोई भी टॉपिक आ गया, डिस्कस द मेनेस ऑफ चाइल्ड लेबर. डिड यू गेट द पॉइंट? ठीक है. तो एडवांटेजेस वो अलग चीज हो गई. ऐसे डिस्कस करना है व्हाट इज चाइल्ड लेबर, what are causes of child labor, what are implications of child labor, what have been the government efforts, lacunas and what should be the way forward. ये हमने क्या किया? डिस्कस किया. That is, you are examining in detail the topic. But usually discuss वहीं आएगा जहां पे it is a possibility of a written debate. Is it making sense? अगर written debate की possibility नहीं है, then think of broad dimensions based on which you can discuss the answer. I'll show some examples to you. But as of now, are you understanding what is discussed? So first, elaborate. You don't have to give the counter opinion. That's done and dusted. Define often is being asked in context of topics where there exists more than one interpretation. और अगर specifically define, अच्छा एक खुद बात सोचो कि define उन्होंने लिखा है, इसका मतलब है ना वो चाहते हैं आप उस टॉपिक को एक्सप्लोर करो. नहीं तो वो नॉर्मल क्वेश्चन देते तो क्वेश्चन में भी तो वही कीवर्ड है, आप डेफिनेशन तो इंट्रोडक्शन में लिखते ही लिखते. But they have specifically asked you to define something because they want you to explore the meaning of the topic from more than one perspective. So whenever define is given, try to explore it and try to give a precise meaning of the terminology or the concept. यहाँ तक clear हुआ? Discuss is a written debate where you are presenting your case for the motion and against the motion. Then we have explain. Okay. See, explain का एक interesting component है. It is not required until and unless it is asked in the question. No need to give the counter opinion. For example, explain Karl Marx theory of class struggle. क्या पूछा? Explain Karl Marx theory of class struggle. उसने ये थोड़ी ना कहा कि critically examine Karl Marx theory of class struggle, या to what extent Karl Marx theory of class struggle is holding empirical validation. comment ऐसा तो कुछ भी नहीं बोला. उन्होंने क्या बोला? जो Karl Marx की थ्योरी है क्लास स्ट्रगल की उसको एक्सप्लेन कर दो. So explain का मतलब होता है you have to explain all the nitty-gritties, that how Karl Marx came up with this idea of class struggle or developed the theory of class struggle in his analysis and critique of capitalist society. Then you will talk about how he said in each stage there exist two groups. However, the struggle has always existed between the minorities and the stage has changed when one form of private property has been replaced by another. However, in context of capitalist society, the struggle would be between minority and majority. Is that clear? And private property would be replaced by communally owned property. Then you will say this is the reason because capitalist societies are unstable. They are unstable. Why? Because there exist inherent contradictions. There are two contradictions. First is extraction of surplus, profit generation and accumulation, which creates ground for exploitation of the workers. Based on that, there is another contradiction, that the production is social but ownership is individual, which further illuminates the exploitation of the workers. And post this, there are three conditions which are followed: homogenization, pauperization and proletarization, which leads to transformation of class in itself to class for itself. And when there is subjective realization of objective reality, it would lead to revolution and it would be replaced. ठीक है, एक लाइन में बस आपने conclude करते वक्त that above theory has been critiqued due to lack of empirical validation, but still has made a major contribution to the discipline of sociology. बात खत्म. आपको काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट यहां देना ही नहीं था, क्योंकि क्वेश्चन क्या है? एक्सप्लेन मार्क्स थ्योरी ऑफ स्ट्रगल. आपको वो ठीक लग रही है नहीं लग रही, वो किसी ने पूछा ही नहीं. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? तो कीवर्ड्स का सिग्निफिकेंस होता है, बट ठीक है. मैंने सिर्फ आपको एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए प्रीवियस ईयर से उठा लिए कि हवाबाजी नहीं लगे कि आंसर हो सकता है. डिफाइन एथनिसिटी. अक्सर क्वेश्चन ऐसे ही आता है Discuss the role of pressure groups in strengthening democracy. Can we write a written debate for the motion and against the motion, how it strengthens democracy and how it is challenging democracy? Discuss law as an important instrument for women's empowerment. Remember, law fastens the process of change. Law legitimizes change. Law is indicator of change. Law prevents negative social change. That is one aspect. हम कर रहे हैं ना different dimensions से discuss. But then we can also quote Andre Bete's perspective that law only determines the direction in which society should move. So law can be a necessary condition for women empowerment. It cannot be a sufficient condition. Did you understand? We are discussing the issue. Similarly, what is aging? Discuss the major problems of aged people. अभी मैंने वो आंसर दिखाया. It is the same question. ठीक? Explain Max Weber's theory of social stratification. इसी साल का सवाल है. बस explain करनी है theory और कुछ नहीं करना, क्योंकि उसके बाद दूसरा question start हो गया है. आपको जरूरत ही नहीं थी यहाँ पे critical aspect देने की. Just explain what is Weber's theory of stratification. Similarly, elaborate on M.N. Srinivas' structural functionalist approach. Elaborate. Whatever is the approach, just elaborate. पर इस question को देखो. Elaborate on the changing nature of caste system with suitable illustration. किसको elaborate करने को कहा है? Caste system को. चेंजिंग नेचर ऑफ कास्ट सिस्टम को. तो उस देखना पहले कि इलैबोरेट किसको करना है. चेंजिंग नेचर ऑफ कास्ट सिस्टम मतलब कास्ट सिस्टम इज अंडरगोइंग अ change and you just need to elaborate whether it is ritual dimension, whether it is economic dimension, or let us say it is with respect to occupational division of labor, purity, pollution, whatsoever, but you have to elaborate on the changing nature of caste system and with the help of illustrations. Just one disclaimer, अगर उन्होंने illustration नहीं भी लिखा होता तो भी आप illustration देते, नहीं तो आप elaborate कैसे कर रहे हैं? Elaborate has to be done by means of examples. ठीक है? Read this. The first point, illustrate. That is a very common keyword. Usually illustrate का मतलब होता है through diagrams. तो अगर तो बन सकते हैं किसी टॉपिक में तो बात अलग है, बट यूजुअली वो बनते नहीं हैं. तो इन सिंपल वर्ड्स वी विल एक्नॉलेज इलस्ट्रेशन मीन्स वॉट एवर यू आर राइटिंग यू शुड हैव एग्जाम्पल फॉर एवरी पॉइंट. सपोज करो उन्होंने इलस्ट्रेट नहीं लिखा, नॉर्मली लिख दिया, यू आर गिविंग एग्जाम्पल्स, बट उसमें क्या होता है कभी कभी एक आध पॉइंट पे एग्जाम्पल नहीं है तो आपने छोड़ दिया. But when it says illustrate with example, that means every argument should have a specific example because the keyword is illustrate. आपके argument की कोई value नहीं होगी if you have not substantiated it with example. नहीं तो क्या होता है हमने 6 पॉइंट लिखे, 4 का example लिखा, 2 का छोड़ दिया, उस वक्त याद नहीं आ रहा. But if illustration is given, that means all 6 points should have examples. That is what it means to illustrate. Explain through examples. That is what it means. ठीक है. Now, यहाँ पे डाउट आता है कि सोशियोलॉजी में क्या एग्जाम्पल. ठीक है, देखो एक एडवाइस है कि रिपोर्ट स्टेटिस्टिक्स ये थोड़े कम देंगे. ठीक है, वी शुड फोकस मोर ऑन केस स्टडी, वी शुड फोकस मोर ऑन perspectives, we should focus more on, let us say, current example, not the statistic, example, if something has happened in recent times. So current event or example from the social context, but avoid writing statistics or data. That is not feasible. Is that very clear? ठीक है. Next, हम analyze और examine बाद में करते हैं. The topic is assess. See, there are 3 words which we'll take together. One is assess, second is to what extent, and third is how far. All the 3 have same answer. ठीक है? Assess. For example, write down few questions. Assess the impact of modernity on religious fundamentalism. Assess the impact of modernity on religious fundamentalism. Second, how far modernity is responsible for religious fundamentalism. To what extent modernity is the breeding ground for religious fundamentalism? Did you understand? All the three answer would remain the same. तो अब आंसर क्या है? Assess करना. Simple words, how far, to what extent. तो assessment का मतलब होता है कि there is a proposition which is given to you. Modernity leading to religious fundamentalism. You have to assess to what extent that proposition is right. So first you will tell to what extent that proposition is right, that modernity actually is leading to religious fundamentalism. Then you will give a counter argument where you will say this proposition is not right. And finally, in conclusion, you will mention what is your opinion about the proposition. Finally, what is your stand? मतलब assess करना है ना आपको, तो आपको finally बताना पड़ेगा that is modernity the breeding ground for fundamentalism or not. If yes, then whatever is your conclusion. If not, then why? जो भी आपका assessment है, whether you are agreeing with the proposition, whether you are disagreeing with the proposition, or you want to give us some balanced aspect to it, you have to mention while concluding your answer. That is what it means when we say assess to what extent or how far. Is it making sense for everyone? Is it clear? Take care. Next. इस साल का ही क्वेश्चन है, मैंने कहा एक बार एक क्वेश्चन डिस्कस करके दिखा देते हैं. रीड द क्वेश्चन. हाउ डू यू असेस द चेंजिंग पैटर्न इन किनशिप रिलेशंस इन सोसाइटीज टुडे? क्वेश्चन तो क्लियर है? ठीक. व्हाट इज किनशिप सिस्टम? व्हाट इज द फीचर ऑफ ट्रेडिशनल किनशिप सिस्टम? व्हाई डू वी राइट द फीचर्स? टू अंडरस्टैंड टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट इट हैज चेंज्ड. Then we are discussing changes at two levels, the structural changes and the functional changes. Once we have discussed the structural and the functional changes, then we are going to talk about, just a second. Before concluding the counter argument, while there had been a substantial change in the structure and function, certain aspects still continue. Is that very clear? And finally the conclusion. Did you understand? How do you assess? So assess matlab to what extent. So first, what is kinship relation? What were the traditional features of the kinship relation? There has been some forces of change because of which two aspects of kinship relation are changing, the structural and the functional aspect. And finally, some aspects are still continuing. So you can come up with above consideration, we can conclude that the pattern of changes in kinship is a dialectical process between traditional and modern forces. Some elements are changing, some are still continuing. Is that making sense for everyone? Is the example clear for everyone? See, compare and contrast, very often it is being asked. Just remember one thing, agar sirf compare hai, you have to write both the differences and the similarity and equal weightage. ठीक है? So compare में equal weightage has to be given to the similarity and the differences. But let us suppose it is contrast. So 80% of your answer would be difference and 20% would be on similarities. But let us suppose the question is compare and contrast. That's the easiest thing, write both. So that's the easiest way of answering. Is this very clear for everyone? Is it making sense? Let us talk about two very common yet important, examine and analyze. One disclaimer, critically does not mean to criticize. Critically means in depth. तो अगर critically analyze आ जाए, let us suppose critically analyze to what extent feminization of agriculture has led to women empowerment. The question is critically analyze. The basic is every key term has to be explained. Define what is feminization of agriculture, define what is women empowerment, discuss how feminization of agriculture leads to women empowerment, then mention how feminization of agriculture is not leading to women empowerment, and finally you write the conclusion. Is that very clear? ठीक है. Now let us suppose ये question होता critically examine. Examine का मतलब होता है उस statement को या उस question को examine करना है through different dimensions. For example, can we do this? Functions and dysfunctions. Or we can discuss this feminization of agriculture, social aspect of empowerment, economic aspect of empowerment, political aspect of empowerment, or cultural aspect of empowerment. Examine का मतलब होता है the statement has to be examined from different dimensions. That is what it means when we say examine. Is that very clear for everyone? Let me give you another. Examine the relationship between sociology and economics. Examine the relationship between sociology and common sense. Examine the relationship between sociology and political science. Did you understand? ठीक है. So basically we are doing the comparison. Can we say when we are doing this comparison, the first dimension is the definition of the discipline? What is sociology and what is economics? Second thing is the subject matter of both the discipline. Third is the scope of both the discipline. Fourth is the nature of methodology which is used in both the discipline. Next is the application of the methodology. And finally, the interdisciplinary, or let us use the word reciprocal influence. That in contemporary time, there exists interdisciplinary nature where both the disciplines are influencing each other through examples. ये क्या हुआ? ये dimensions हुए जिनके through आप अपने answer को examine कर रहे हो. Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है. Similarly, examine Marx and Weber's perspective on capitalism. What is capitalism? What is the cause of capitalism, emergence of capitalism, to be very precise? What are the consequences of capitalism? What is their perspective on capitalism? ये सब क्या है? Dimensions. Similarly, stratification. Stratification क्या है? Basis of stratification क्या है? Structure of stratification क्या है? Consequences of stratification क्या है? Whether it is functional or not, indispensable or not, that is nothing but dimensions. So when you examine something, it has to be done through dimensions. But when we say analyze, analyze मतलब break down the entire statement into constituent parts and try to establish the interrelationship. और अगर critically आ जाए analyze करने को, तो जितना in depth evaluation और मतलब analysis होगा उतना better है. That every point that you are writing, you have to give the examples. Is it making sense for everyone? The difference between analyze and examine clear हुआ? ये समझ आया? क्रिटिकली का मतलब क्रिटिसाइज नहीं होता. अगर क्रिटिसाइज करने के पॉइंट्स हैं आपके पास तो लिख दो, बट जबरदस्ती क्रिटिकली का मतलब क्रिटिसाइज नहीं होता. इट मीन्स इन डेप्थ. टिल हियर इज एवरीथिंग क्लियर? कैन वी प्रोसीड टू द नेक्स्ट? नेक्स्ट इज कॉमेंट. कॉमेंट इज ऑफन अ वेरी कॉमन टर्म विच इज यूज्ड. कॉमेंट मीन्स योर ओपिनियन, as simple as that. Now there is one observation which I've made. Comment is your opinion. Can I say comment and discuss are just opposite of each other? Discuss में, once I have discussed everything, I am writing my conclusion. But comment में, I have to give my opinion in the introduction. आपकी ओपिनियन है, it should be reflected in the introduction, and then entire body is nothing but justification of your opinion. Let me see if I have a question for you. We have a question. इसी साल का है. Read the question. What is the distinctiveness of the feminist method of social research? Comment करना है. आपकी opinion पूछिए, ठीक है? But the opinion is not being asked on a statement. Opinion has been asked on a question. So everything that you write in the answer is actually displaying your opinion. How feminist method is distinctive? We started with a definition of feminist method. The first point that we wrote is that feminist method were able to establish gender as a central category. That's your opinion. And how did you justify the opinion? By giving an example. Then your second opinion is that fine, feminist method is distinctive. How your opinion? Understanding the patriarchal nature of society. Do we have an example to justify my opinion? Sylvia Walby. Feminist methods are distinct because they have enabled us to formulate new concepts. Do I have an example to justify my opinion? Leela Dubé's perspective. It is distinct because it has criticized the existing traditional social perspectives. Do I have an example? Yes, we do have an example. Then challenging the commonsensical understanding of the society and how the work is divided in the society. Do we have an example? Margaret Mead ka theory. So through the opinion, because the opinion was asked on a question. So every point that I'm writing to answer that question is the reflection of my opinion. And every opinion needs to be justified. Otherwise, who are we? How will I establish that whatever I'm writing is right? So every point that you write, you have to give an example, especially when you have to justify your opinion. Similarly, intersectionality, Kimberly Crenshaw's perspective. So did you understand? For every point we have given the example. And यहीं पे मैं एक चीज कवर कर रही हूँ. आपको structure दिख रहा है आंसर राइटिंग का? Point, example, point, example, point, example. लोगों को डाउट होता है बुलेट्स में लिखें या पैराग्राफ में लिखे. लिखो, बस सही लिखो. That is the only concern. पैराग्राफ और बुलेट्स डज नॉट मैटर. इनफैक्ट मुझे कभी कभी फील होता है जैसे जो मेरे सीनियर्स थे उनके टाइम पे 60 नंबर के क्वेश्चन आते थे, मेरे टाइम तक 30 नंबर के थे, आपके टाइम पे 20 और 10 नंबर के हैं. उनको पैराग्राफ राइटिंग शायद चाहिए नहीं. 10 नंबर में केड़ी पैराग्राफ राइटिंग हो रही है? Are you understanding the point? They just want that you should hit the bull's eye. Whatever is being asked, just give them the answer. And for every argument, give them the example. And your job is done. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. हाँ, अगर लग रहा है कि बहुत बुलेट पॉइंट्स हो रहा है तो थोड़ा सा पैराग्राफ. भाई इंट्रोडक्शन और कंक्लूजन तो पैराग्राफ ही है, ठीक है, या लिंकिंग पॉइंट्स जो डालते हो वो भी तो पैराग्राफ ही है. बट रेस्ट आई वुड सजेस्ट दैट मेक यूज ऑफ बुलेट्स एंड एग्जाम्पल्स. ठीक है. Now, the second thing, are all the keywords clear for everyone? Is every keyword clear? ठीक है. But before we proceed with this, इसमें एक नया keyword है elucidate, that is explaining with examples. But before we proceed to this, let me just show one more thing. Let's come back to this. We have discussed almost every keyword. Second is theory and application. Most common thing that often theories and their application are asked. One thumb rule. If the question is on theory and application, if the question is only on application, you still have to write the theory. Suppose karo question is theory and application. So let us say 60% of the theory and 40% of the application. But the question is only on application of some theory. Still 20 to 30% of your answer would be theory. थ्योरी नहीं लिखोगे तो पहली बात अप्लाई कर किसको रहे हो, पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज, इफ यू राइट योर थ्योरी एंड देन यू राइट द एप्लीकेशन, द पर्सन हु इज रीडिंग योर आंसर ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंड्स विथ व्हाट इंटेंट यू हैव रिटन. थर्ड मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट नीड्स टू बी रिटन. सो प्लीज मेंशन द थ्योरी इवन इफ द क्वेश्चन इज एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड. लेकिन अब असलियत बताऊं, हो सकता है एप्लीकेशन सही नहीं लगे, हो सकता है what you are thinking as the application is not the right application, at least theory के तो नंबर मिलेंगे. So we are actually trying to play safe as well. But having said that, you need to understand you cannot apply till the time you're not mentioning the theory. But prioritization has to be kept in mind, whether it is 60-40 or it is 20-80. So if it is an application based, that is what I wanted to show. Just wait. Again, this is this year's question. Oh. I just need, I think, almost I have made all the answers for 2023, paper 1 and paper 2, but I just need to do final editing. So I think within this week, or after Diwali to be very precise, I'll upload it on the channel. But having said that, just understand. Is the reference group theory a universally applicable model? Elucidate. Question is purely application based. Okay. But can we start the answer with what is reference group theory? Very briefly. Okay. It becomes easy. Now the question is, so only this much part, what is reference group and what is the theory of reference group as given by Merton. Okay. Then we are going to talk about the applicability. Is it universally applicable? तो क्या वो temporally applicable है, क्या वो spatially applicable है, और क्या ऐसी जगह है जहां वो applicable नहीं है? Is that very clear? So applicability temporally, traditional society and modern society. In traditional society, there is a concept called Sanskritization. In modern society, there is something called conspicuous consumption. That happens because of reference group. Similarly, in spatially different society, Indian society, rural to urban migration, that is nothing but reference group behavior. Similarly, Western societies where black self is imitating the white self. This is nothing but, again, reference group behavior. So it is applicable temporally also and spatially also. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्होंने पूछा universally applicable है या नहीं. तो हम दिखाना चाहते थे geographical application and time period application. But there are some situations where it cannot be applied. For example, Oscar Lewis का culture of poverty. कहते हैं ना एक सब कल्चर ऑफ पॉवर्टी बन जाता है, वेयर यू नो लॉन्गर फील दैट यू आर रिलेटिवली डिप्राइव्ड, सो यू बेसिकली डोंट हैव एनी रेफरेंस group, or there is some section which is extremely deprived, who are not coming in contact with other society. So in that case also reference group theory would not be applicable. Did you get the point? Can we write these points? And finally you can conclude the answer. Did you understand the demand? Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है. अब मुद्दा आता है elucidate. Elucidate का कुछ मतलब नहीं है. It's just that explanation, or let me put it a word, discuss with specific examples. Elucidate का मतलब ही ये होता है हर एक point का example. Is it clear for everyone? Now, the next thing that I have to discuss is, we have done the theory and the application part. Let's come back to the, यार ये बहुत बेसिक सी चीज़ है and we don't understand this. Why am I saying this? जिन question में सब parts होते हैं, every sub part has to be answered. But एक wisdom you need to apply in the examination, which sub part should be given how much space. So I'll tell you an easiest way. When you are practicing your answer writing, you have got the question, ठीक है? Just write 2, 8, 4, 6, 5, 5. मैं आपको 10 मार्कर में डिवीजन बता रही हूँ. जैसे सपोज करो मुझे 2 और 8 कर दिया, तो अब मेरे को मेंटली समझ आ गया कि इस पार्ट को मुझे इतना ही लिखना है एंड रिमेनिंग पार्ट हैज टू बी डिस्कस्ड इन डिटेल. इफ इट इज लेट अस से 5, 5, सो आई हैव मेंटली प्रिपेयर्ड दैट बोथ द पार्ट्स हैव टू बी इक्वली answered. Did you get the point? And that wisdom has to be decided on the spot in the examination, that which part has to be given what weightage. In fact, this is also an important consideration while you are writing your answer. आप क्या करते हो, जो आपको आता है वो आप लिखे जा रहे हो. अब व्हाट इज एथनिसिटी पूछा, डिफाइन एथनिसिटी पूछा, उसी पे आपने एक पेज लिख दिया, और उसके आगे जो प्रॉब्लम्स लिखी हैं एथनिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के रीजन, वो कौन लिखेगा? सो द पॉइंट हियर इज यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कितना लिखना है और आगे वाले पार्ट नहीं, तो फिर क्या होगा, कोई भी एक पार्ट रह गया, नो मैटर हाउ गुड आंसर यू हैव रिटन, यू हैव नॉट रिटन अ कंप्लीट आंसर, यू विल नॉट बी फेचिंग मार्क्स. इज इट मेकिंग सेंस फॉर एवरीवन? ठीक है. एंड देन कम्स द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट कॉम्पोनेंट, एसेंस. अब मैं ये बताती हूँ कैसे वर्क करता है. एक स्टेटमेंट आया, इकोनॉमिक्स इज हैंडमेड ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी. हमारी बत्ती जली, हमने कहा अरे ये तो इकोनॉमिक्स और सोशियोलॉजी पे क्वेश्चन है, फिर हमने जो पढ़ा है व्हाट इज इकोनॉमिक्स, व्हाट इज सोशियोलॉजी, व्हाट इज द सब्जेक्ट मैटर, व्हाट इज द स्कोप, और करके हमने आंसर लिख दिया. क्या क्वेश्चन ये है? Discuss the relationship of sociology with economics? No. There is a statement that economics is subservient to sociology. You cannot study the economic behavior without understanding the social dynamics. Did you get the point? Simple. History without sociology has no fruit, and sociology without history has no root. हम क्या करते हैं? हिस्ट्री और सोशियोलॉजी में जो पढ़ा है वो लिख कर आ जाते हैं. क्वेश्चन ने ये पूछा, क्वेश्चन ने ये पूछा, ये एस्टैब्लिश करो कि अगर हिस्ट्री का कोई पर्पस ही नहीं होगा अगर सोशियोलॉजी नहीं है, ठीक है, एंड सोशियोलॉजी हैज नो बेसिस, नो प्रीमाइस इफ देयर इज नो हिस्ट्री, दैट हैज टू बी एक्सप्लेन्ड. डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड द पॉइंट? दिस इज व्हाट इज नोन एज एसेंस. इज इट क्लियर? और ये मैं बता देती हूँ कभी कभी कैसे काम करता है. सपोज करो आप आंसर लिख रहे हो एंड सच क्वेश्चंस आर गिवन टू यू, यू अंडरस्टैंड द मीनिंग ऑफ द स्टेटमेंट, देन तो राइट व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड. लेट अस सपोज ऑन द डे ऑफ एग्जामिनेशन कुछ हुआ, यू आर नॉट एग्जैक्टली गेटिंग हाउ टू स्ट्रक्चर द आंसर. इन द कंक्लूजन और समवेयर इन द मिडल ऑफ द आंसर पैराफ्रेज द क्वेश्चन विच इज गिवन. जैसे क्वेश्चन आया दैट यूनियन ऑफ एंथ्रोपोलॉजी एंड सोशियोलॉजी इज मच डिजायरेबल डिस्पाइट देयर डिफरेंसेस. ठीक है, आपने नॉर्मली लिखा जो आपको एंथ्रोपोलॉजी और सोशियोलॉजी में आता था. कंक्लूजन में लिख दो हेंस द यूनियन ऑफ सोशियोलॉजी एंड एंथ्रोपोलॉजी इज मच डिजायरेबल. Did you get the point? That is known as sign posted. I'm just giving you the disaster management trick. But ideally, I would prefer that जो essence है, that needs to be answered. For example, science or religion. Einstein का statement है ना? Religion without science is blind and science without religion is lame. ठीक है. So in that context, you need to understand, divide your answer body in two parts. How science without religion is lame, give your points. How religion without science is blind, give your points. Randomly, you can't just write about science and religion. Is that very clear? ये बहुत basic चीजें हैं, but that has to be kept in mind. Is it making sense for everyone? This is known as remaining close to the essence of the topic. Clear है? ठीक है. Now come to the next part, that is the content. Now within content there are few things which have to be kept in mind, and let me just cover it. You will not just write the argument. Every argument needs to have a substantiation, because for us any point which is not supported by a theoretical perspective basically has no weightage in this examination. Now comes the point कि substantiate करते वक्त हम कैसे substantiate करें. कुछ basic चीजें हैं जिनका ध्यान रखेंगे, and I'm telling you the tricks, especially for sociology paper 2. The first common aspect is write the answer from school of thoughts. Conflict perspective, functional perspective, feminist perspective, subaltern perspective, interactionist perspective, postmodernist perspective. Did you get the point? ठीक है. That's one way of making your otherwise a GS answer look sociological. ठीक है. That's one way of doing it. The second most common way of doing it is using sociological terminologies. Okay, I'll give you the idea. इस बार एक क्वेश्चन आया, what are the salient feature of new education policy? इससे ज्यादा जीएस बेस तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता. पिछली बार कम से कम सिग्निफिकेंस पूछा था, इस बार क्या पूछा? सेलिएंट फीचर्स. अब इसको कैसे सोशियोलॉजिकल बनाएं? तो कैन वी स्टार्ट विद दैट न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी वाज इंप्लीमेंटेड ऑन द रिकमेंडेशन ऑफ कस्तूरी रंगन panel with twin objective. One, to increase the opportunity of mobility and to reduce alienation. और झुटला के दिखाओ ये दोनों पॉइंट. न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के फीचर्स उठा के देख लो, मोबिलिटी होगी कि नहीं होगी जो फीचर्स हैं, एलियनेशन कम होगा कि नहीं होगा, मदर टंग में एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं, वोकेशनल एजुकेशन दे रहे हैं, तो आप झुटला तो नहीं सकते मेरे पॉइंट को. बट डिड आई मेक द आंसर लुक सोशियोलॉजिकल? ठीक है. तो यूज, डेलिब्रेट यूसेज. जैसे कि अगर मुझे सेलियंट फीचर लिखना होता तो मैं लिखती कि दिस इज प्रमोटिंग स्पेशलाइजेशन, न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी इज प्रमोटिंग स्पेशलाइजेशन विच विल लीड टू इंटर डिपेंडेंस, विच इन टर्न विल प्रमोट ऑर्गेनिक सॉलिडारिटी इन द सोसाइटी. Did you get my point? There is a salient feature that talks about early childhood care and education. So when early childhood care and education, that's the first feature of new education policy, early childhood care and education is given. It is a process of socialization which will lead to value consensus. Can I quote Talcott Parson here? There is a provision, 360-degree assessment. So can I say with the implementation of 360-degree assessment, what makes this feature a salient feature is that it is going to, how should I say, how it will negate the myth of meritocracy. Are you getting my point, what we are trying to say? Okay. So basically, you have to make your answer. For example, there is a provision, gender inclusion fund. There is a provision, salient feature in new education policy, socio-economic development zones, gender inclusion fund, so that to increase the outreach of the education system. So can we talk about intersectionality here? Can we talk about women empowerment? Can we say it will reduce the incidences of feminization of poverty? It will also help in breaking the caste-class nexus, as it may promote Dalit entrepreneurship. मैं आपको तरीके बता रही हूँ, तो इतने जो शब्दावली हमने तैयार करी है, इसका इस्तेमाल करना है. जब सोशियोलॉजी की आंसर राइटिंग करते हैं तो हम नॉर्मली बात नहीं करते, हम कभी नहीं कहते पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव, हम कहते फंक्शंस और डिसफंक्शंस. हम कभी चेंज नहीं ऐसे डिस्कस करते, हम कहते मैक्रो लेवल और माइक्रो लेवल, स्ट्रक्चरल और कल्चरल. सो यू टॉक लाइक दिस and this is how the answer writing has to be done. Automatically ये जो social mobility है, consolidation है, organic solidarity है, all of this is nothing but sociological perspective. हर थोड़ी देर में तो हमें alienation हो जाता है. So the point here is make use of these things. The more you use the, how should I say, the language, the terminology of sociology, automatically a normal GS based answer will start looking like a sociological academic answer. So the first thing is use the school of thought. The second thing is use the terminology. And third thing which can be used is prepare certain templates. कुछ ऐसे टेम्पलेट्स होते हैं, हमेशा तैयार करने चाहिए. स्टीवन ल्यूक्स फेस ऑफ पावर, 3 फेसेस ऑफ पावर, बहुत ज्यादा एप्लीकेशन है इनका. लेट अस सपोज इंपैक्ट ऑफ मीडिया आ जाए, सेकेंड फेस ऑफ पावर. लेट अस से द रोल ऑफ एडवर्टिजमेंट्स आ जाए, एंटरटेनमेंट इंडस्ट्री आ जाए, सोशल नॉर्म्स आ जाए, थर्ड फेस ऑफ पावर. So the faces of power concept of Stephen Lukes has lot of application. How social media is impacting the behavior or the attitude of a person. How media is shaping the opinion and perspective of the society. You can make use of this power. It is nothing but the critique of pluralistic perspective. So Stephen Lukes हो गया, जॉन उरी हो गया, तो स्टीवन ल्यूक्स का ना एप्लीकेशन बहुत ज्यादा है. दैट इज व्हाई आई एम सेइंग प्रिपेयर दीज टेम्पलेट्स, 3 फेसेस ऑफ पावर, एंड ट्राई टू यूज इट. और ये कैसे तैयार करते हैं? आपने टेम्पलेट तैयार किया, स्टीवन ल्यूक्स 3 फेस ऑफ पावर. अब आप ये देखो कि कॉन्टेम्पररी टाइम्स में कहाँ हम इसको लिख सकते हैं. मैं बताती हूँ हम कैसे तैयारी करते हैं. हम टॉपिक उठाते हैं और फिर सोचते हैं कौन कौन सा थिंकर यहाँ लिखे. 100 टॉपिक है. And a general rule is in a 10 marker there has to be at least 4 thinkers and in a 20 marker 6 to 7 thinkers. कितने तैयार करोगे? Now I give you another strategy. Prepare 10 to 15 templates and within every template identify 6-7 topics where that template can be used. Is the work becoming easier now? Okay, I'll give you another example, you will understand. Have you heard of the concept, Ulrich Beck concept of risk society? Ulrich Beck has defined society which is characterized by risk and uncertainties. It says in traditional societies, the risks were natural. But in today's modern society, the risks are man-made. So can I use Ulrich Beck's perspective whenever the question is, let us say, unemployment? Did you get the point? Let us say negative impact of artificial intelligence. Let us say environmental crisis. Did you get the point what we are trying to say? So basically Ulrich Beck's concept of risk society पता होना चाहिए और फिर identify करो कि वो कहाँ कहाँ लिखा जा सकता है. COVID-19 pandemic. You can actually make reference to Ulrich Beck का risk society का concept. Similarly, there was a question this time, globalization's impact on employment, the nature of employment in 21st century, something like that question है. क्या मैं ये कह सकती हूँ globalization की वजह से informalization हो रहा है? Informalization से temporary nature of jobs are coming, job security is declining, the risk with respect to labor market is increasing. That is how it has been put by Ulrich Beck's concept of risk society. Did you get the point? ठीक है, तो टेम्पलेट क्या तैयार किया? उल्रिक बेक का कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रिस्क सोसाइटी, और फिर अपने आप को 10 से 15 मिनट दो कि कौन से कॉन्टेम्पररी इश्यूज हैं जहां पे अगर क्वेश्चन आया तो मैं ये पॉइंट लिख सकती हूं. Did you get the point? ठीक. Similarly, Zygmunt Bauman's concept of liquid modernity. बहुत ज्यादा एप्लीकेबल कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं. अच्छा, मैं नॉर्मली पूछ रही हूं, आप लोगों ने एंथनी गिडन स्ट्रक्चरेशन थ्योरी पढ़ी है? नहीं, कोई बात नहीं, ठीक है, जब पढ़ो और नहीं करिए तो कर लो, ठीक है. एंथनी गिडन्स का ना एप्लीकेशन बहुत अच्छा है. देखो, मैं तुम्हें ट्रिक सिखा रही हूँ, मैं ये नहीं कह रही कि जबरदस्ती करो, मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि अगर हम जैसे सपोज करो रिफ्लेक्सिव मॉडर्निटी कॉन्सेप्ट है एंथनी गिडन्स का कि वॉट एवर यू आर एक्टिंग यू शुड रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन योर एक्शंस एंड द कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज ऑफ द एक्शन. तो वो एक क्वेश्चन नहीं आया था CSR वाला, relevance of CSR in the backdrop of environmental crisis. So can I say when companies are indulging in CSR, it is an expression of reflexive modernity as put forward by Anthony Giddens. जैसे वेदांता ने पहले तो environmental crisis की है और फिर वेदांता rehabilitation के लिए CSR कर रही है. So this is nothing but an example of reflexive modernity. You are reflecting on the actions that you have taken. Did you get the point? Is it making sense? Similarly, make use of these templates. आपने जॉन बॉद्रियात का नाम सुना है? Postmodernist, hyper reality concept, जहाँ पे we are living in our virtual world. ठीक है, we are more driven by what is shown through images rather than what is reality. हम सबका अपना एक डिज्नी वर्ल्ड है, ठीक है ना? So that is nothing but hyper reality. Can I say that is the negative impact of technology? That people are getting detached from the real world. The boundary between real and virtual is getting blurred. और हमने इसमें क्या impact क्या अप्लाई करा? जॉन बॉद्रियाट का concept of hyper reality. Did you get the point what I'm trying to say? तो template तैयार करो and try to apply that. Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है, एक ऐसी एक दिन में पढ़ रही थी, सोशना ज़ुबॉफ, सर्विलेंस कैपिटलिज्म. सोशना ज़ुबॉफ ने एक बात बोली थी कि आज के टाइम पे जो हो रहा है ना सर्विलेंस कैपिटलिज्म, जैसे सपोज करो आई एम द सर्विस प्रोवाइडर, यू आर माई कस्टमर, आई एम दोज बिग कंपनी, ठीक है, आई हैव एक्सेस टू योर डेटा, आई एम हार्वेस्टिंग योर डेटा, आई एम यूजिंग योर डेटा, आई एम ऑल्सो सेलिंग योर डेटा. सो बेसिकली आई एम ट्राइंग टू control you. Is that very clear? In fact, your needs are also getting exploited by me without you even realizing. Because I'm keeping a close check on your preferences and identity. And accordingly, the notification are being provided to you. Is it making sense? This is nothing but surveillance capitalism. देखो, यहाँ पे भी हो रहा है ना, जो big companies हैं वो accumulate कर रही हैं, आपको exploit कर रही हैं, over a long period आपका alienation हो रहा है. Capitalism में भी तो यही होता है. Accumulation, your exploitation and alienation. So this is nothing but Zoshna Zuboff ka. So the point which I'm trying to say is Marx's theory holding relevance in current time. Yes, the concept is Zoshna Zuboff's surveillance capitalism. Is it making sense for everyone? और ये बहुत आसान है और ये तब पॉसिबल है जब जो बेसिक ग्राउंडेड नॉलेज है उस पे पकड़ है. अगर उस पे पकड़ है तो फिर ये टेम्पलेट्स आराम से तैयार हो जाते हैं. मैंने लास्ट ईयर भी बोला था स्टूडेंट्स को जब वी वर डूइंग द टेस्ट सीरीज दैट देयर आर सम 15 to 20 ऑड टेम्पलेट्स विच हैज टू बी प्रिपेयर्ड. क्योंकि एप्लीकेशन के टाइम पे ना बहुत बार कितने टॉपिक्स पढ़ के जाओगे, वो कुछ भी पूछ लेंगे, फिर उसको कैसे सोशियोलॉजिकल बनाएंगे. तो कुछ ब्रॉड पॉइंट्स होते हैं जिनकी एप्लीकेशन अच्छी खासी होती है. ट्राई टू अप्लाई दैट. इज दैट मेकिंग सेंस फॉर एवरीवन? ठीक है, कुछ तो स्टैंडर्ड है, वो तो जो डर्काइम है, मर्टन है, वो तो अप्लाई हो ही रहा है, बट वो तो सब अप्लाई कर रहे हैं. हाउ विल यू मेक योर आंसर लुक स्लाइटली academically rich? You have to put in that one extra effort. और उसमें कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है। तुम, अच्छा एक और चीज़ है, हम आपको 10 ऑड थिंकर्स ढूंढने को नहीं कह रहे, हम आपसे ये कह रहे हैं 10 ये बेसिक टेम्पलेट्स हैं, इन्हें अप्लाई कर दो। और हमें ये क्यों नहीं पता होता? क्योंकि हम स्टैंडर्ड बुक्स नहीं पढ़ते। हमें ड्रामाटर्जिकल पर्सपेक्टिव इसीलिए नहीं पता था क्योंकि हम ये टेम्पलेट्स तैयार नहीं करते। सोशियोलॉजिकल इमेजिनेशन बाय सी राइट मिल्स, क्योंकि हम ये टेम्पलेट्स तैयार नहीं करते। इनफैक्ट सोशियोलॉजिकल इमेजिनेशन बाय सी राइट मिल्स पे एक क्वेश्चन आया था 2018 में, दैट वाज द एग्जैक्ट स्टेटमेंट पिक्ड फ्रॉम हैरोलम्बस एंड हॉलबर्न। बट हम स्टैंडर्ड बुक्स नहीं पढ़ते। ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, नहीं कर पा रहे तो, क्योंकि मैं अभी भी उसी बात पे टिकी रहूंगी, एक सोर्स, क्योंकि मुझे पता है फिर वो बहुत रायता फैल जाता है। लेट्स नॉट डू दैट। हमें 80% पे फोकस करना है, वो 20% बात की बात है। बट एज ऑफ नाउ टेम्पलेट समझ आ रहे हैं कैसे तैयार करना है? ठीक है। आर वी क्लियर ऑन हाउ टू मेक द आंसर लुक सोशियोलॉजिकल? फाइनली द स्ट्रक्चर. There are 3 important components: introduction, body and conclusion. Usually we have a myth that introduction, conclusion उतने significant नहीं होते. Trust me, while awarding the marks, it matters a lot. That how much introduction and conclusion, whether you have written it or not. Is that clear? So every answer, all the 3 components should be clearly visible. Now comes the first part. What do we or how can we approach the introduction part? Standard तरीका होता है. You define the key concept which is there in the question, or you start with the premise based on which the question might have been asked. और अगर theoretical thinker based question है, you can also start with the significance of the thinker. Or if you remember, जो कि usually बहुत कम को remember होता है, मैं भी कभी भूल जाती हूँ, the books, the research paper, the research work in which that thing has been done, that can be mentioned in the introduction. That shows, because it takes a lot of reading to exactly remember the name of the work. Is that clear? So with that also you can start. But let us suppose there is some topic, जैसे women reservation पे आ जाए, so you can just mention the context in which the question has been asked. That the recent bill which was being passed in the parliament with respect to women reservation. Now let us analyze to what extent it will create grounds for women empowerment. So functions and dysfunctions. Is that very clear for everyone? Okay. Or it can be based on keywords. Read this. Critically examine the methodology of Max Weber. Can the introduction be? Verstehen is defined as an interpretative understanding of social action through emphatic liaison so as to build the sequence of motives to trace the course and effect of social action. Do we need to remember the exact definition? Yes. अगर क्वेश्चन हिस्टोरिकल मटीरियलिज्म पे है, अगर क्वेश्चन सोशल फैक्ट पे है, अगर क्वेश्चन वर्स्टीहीन पे है, यू हैव टू एग्जैक्टली राइट, क्योंकि देखो वर्स्टीहीन आपका नहीं पूछ रहे हैं, वेबर का पूछ रहे हैं, तो वेबर का ही लिखना है. अगर रिलीजन पे क्वेश्चन है तो डर्काइम की ही रिलीजन की डेफिनेशन लिखनी है. हम अपनी लैंग्वेज में लिख दें तो आपकी थ्योरी थोड़ी ना पूछिए, डर्काइम की थ्योरी पूछिए, तो जो डर्काइम ने लिखा है वही लिखेंगे. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर फॉर एवरीवन? सेकंड प्रीमाइस, Max Weber broadened the scope of sociology as the study of social action. According to him, social action can be studied by interpreting the meanings and motives. Weber argues objective understanding of subjective reality can be achieved through Verstehen. Or finally, Max Weber's conception of Verstehen is a very important contribution to methodology of contemporary sociology. All the 3 can be your introduction. Choice is yours. One heads up. With respect to whenever you are doing your answer writing practice, जो static questions होते हैं ना, उनका introduction और conclusion तैयार होना चाहिए beforehand. और वो हो जाएगा, वो अपने आप हो जाएगा. वो आप कोई भी mock test solve कर रहे हो, कोई भी test series solve कर रहे हो, कोई अपने ही notes कर रहे हो, just make a noting कि अगर marks पे सवाल आया तो एक जनरल इंट्रोडक्शन क्या हो सकता है या एक जनरल कंक्लूजन क्या हो सकता है. जैसे कि कोई भी टॉपिक हो, कोई भी थ्योरी हो, एक जनरल कंक्लूजन हो सकता है दैट डिस्पाइट द अबव मेंशन्ड क्रिटिसिज्म इट हैज वाइडन द स्कोप ऑफ सोशियोलॉजिकल डिसिप्लिन. व्हाई? बिकॉज थ्योरीज हैव इमर्ज आइदर टू रिफाइन इट और टू रिफ्यूट इट. आपकी थ्योरी कितनी भी खराब हुई हो, उसकी अगली थ्योरी या तो उसको रिफ्यूट करेगी या उसको रिफाइन करेगी. दोनों ही सूरतों में जो सोशियोलॉजी एज अ डिसिप्लिन है वो तो ब्रॉडन हो रहा है. Despite its share of criticism, Max Weber's theory of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism remains bold and illuminating. Illuminating क्यों? क्योंकि इसने आगे आने वाली theories को illuminate करा. Despite its share of criticism, Karl Marx has made a heuristic impact in the field of sociology. Is it making sense for everyone? ये कुछ standard तरीके होते हैं conclude करने के, and you can follow this conclusion. So first and foremost, did we understand how we can introduce the answer? Second, while writing the body, there are few things. You will address the main theme, you will maintain the coherence, adequate substantiation, enhance the visibility of the content. मैंने बहुत बार देखा है, maintaining the coherence and enhancing the visibility is a major challenge. So in sociology, I would suggest make use of subheadings. It is very handy, and subheadings you find in the question itself. Is it very clear? Subheading से क्या होता है, थोड़ा coherence बन जाता है, and please enhance the visibility. कभी कभी होता है बहुत अच्छे points लिखे पर पढ़ने का मन ही नहीं कर रहा क्योंकि इतना hodgepodge करके आप लोग लिख देते हो. And please big rule, मार्जिन में कुछ नहीं लिखना, इवन बुलेट पॉइंट भी आप मार्जिन में नहीं बनाओगे. ठीक है, लेट मी जस्ट शो. These are the few things keep in mind while improving the visibility of the content. Handwriting बहुत सुंदर नहीं चाहिए, legible होनी चाहिए, समझ आना चाहिए what you have written. अच्छी है तो good enough. Always highlight the key terms. Whatever are the key terms where you want to. जैसे कि आप कभी सोचो आपने पूरा आंसर लिखा, ठीक है, you have not highlighted anything. I will have to read the entire answer and maybe I could find the mistakes that you have committed. But आपने हाईलाइट कर दिया. You actually underline homogenization, pauperization, proletarization, class in itself, class for itself, revolution. मैं आपका आंसर पढ़ूंगी भी नहीं. मुझे दिख गया कि ये यही तो मेन पॉइंट्स थे, ये तो लिखे, बात खत्म. हो सकता है आप थोड़ा एक्सप्लेनेशन में ऊपर नीचे हो गए हो, तो वो सारी चीज़ें शायद ओवरलुक हो जाएं, क्योंकि फर्स्ट इंस्टेंस में मुझे वो सारी इंपॉर्टेंट, इसीलिए मैं कहती हूँ टर्मिनोलॉजीज को यूज करो. आइडिया ऑफ कॉलिंग, डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ प्रीडेस्टिनेशन, इनर वर्ल्डली एसेटिज्म, किसकी बात कर रही हूँ मैं? प्रोटेस्टेंट एथिक एंड स्पिरिट ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. ये वर्ड्स जो की वर्ड्स हैं, if the theory has been asked, a direct theory, make use of these keywords while writing the answer and underline them. The visibility of your content will further increase. Is it making sense? Next, diagrams and flowcharts. That's the best thing, without any doubt I can say. If you are able to make diagrams and flowcharts, 10 to 15 marks difference can be made in your paper. And I'll give you a very easy task. Next time, whenever you write the answer, your strategy or target should be, how should I present this answer so that I fetch 1 extra marks? बस बहुत छोटा सा काम है, आपको और कुछ नहीं करना. एक पेपर में कितने आंसर लिखोगे? 19 आंसर्स, ठीक है, 19 एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स, 2 पेपर्स, 38. योर जॉब इज डन. जिस भी लेवल पे हो, चाहे 180 के लेवल पे हो, 220 के लेवल पे हो, 250 के लेवल पे हो, जिस भी लेवल पे हो, उससे 38 नंबर ऊपर आ जाओगे. सो नेक्स्ट टाइम व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग द आंसर, वेरी स्मॉल टारगेट, हाउ शुड आई अप्रोच द क्वेश्चन सो दैट आई फेच 1 एक्स्ट्रा मार्क. अब उसके लिए मैं हाईलाइट करूं, मैं डायग्राम्स बनाऊं, मैं टैब्यूलर रिप्रेजेंटेशन करूं, मैं सब हेडिंग्स दूं, मैं क्या करूं कि मुझे वो 1 एक्स्ट्रा नंबर मिल जाए. इज इट मेकिंग सेंस फॉर एवरीवन? The question is digitization as an agent of social change. Remember in the beginning of the lecture I was talking about Yogendra Singh has a lot of application. Now while writing the answer, can I make this table? Digitization as an agent of social change. So how digitization is bringing about cultural change at macro level, structural change at macro level, cultural change at micro level, and structural change at micro level. And within that, I have written all the points or the examples which were supposed to be written. Has the visibility of the content increased? Try to incorporate flowcharts and diagrams wherever possible. ये इनका favorite question है, इस बार फिर आ गया. कंपैरिजन. अब जब हर बार आ रहा है तो सीख ही लो कि कैसे करना है, ठीक है. तो जब भी एक कंपैरिजन वाला क्वेश्चन आता है, आई हैव सेड दिस इन माय जीएस क्लासेस आल्सो, पैरामीटर्स आर मैंडेटरी. नॉट बिकॉज कि एग्जामिन इसमें स्टेटमेंट है, एग्जामिन ना भी हो, कंपेयर एंड कॉन्ट्रास्ट है, बट सपोज करो आई हैव टू कंपेयर दीज टू पीपल, कैसे बोलूं? वन इज अ गर्ल एंड अदर इज फ्रॉम दिल्ली. इज देयर एनी सेंस टू दिस कंपैरिजन? तो जब पैरामीटर होगा जेंडर, प्लेस ऑफ ओरिजिन, एकेडमिक बैकग्राउंड, प्रोफेशन, पैरामीटर मिले, अब दो लोगों को कंपेयर करना इज इजी. So whenever there is a question, and this is a very common question, always prepare the parameter. Writing becomes easy. This is how the parameters can be prepared. Everything would be uploaded. This is only for your reference कि prepare कैसे करना है. और जो भी आपका content है, ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको कोई नया content create करना है. Whatever is your content, just try to make use of it. Is the body part, the visibility part, subheading part, introduction part, are they clear? This is finally the conclusion. First, conclusion is mandatory. बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं ये बोलते हैं जगह नहीं थी तो छोड़ दिया, तो एक नंबर वहीं कट गया. So the point here is conclusion is mandatory. Second important thing, if it is a theoretical question, theoretical let us put it, किसी thinker पे question है, you will never conclude on a pessimistic note. Even though the critique was being asked, the final conclusion would always be in a positive light. Is that clear? Third way of concluding can be, let us suppose it is not on a thinker, but some application based, जहाँ पे आपने पूरी theory लिखी और application last में in concluding remark, based on whatever you have written, you are giving a contemporary example to justify what you have written so far. That can also be the conclusion. Is that very clear for everyone? So first note, conclusion writing is mandatory. Second important part, that if it is a question on a thinker, you will never conclude on a negative note. Third, if it is a question where application is possible, so whatever you have written, suppose करो theory पे आ गया, ठीक है, तो अगर आपको पॉजिटिव नोट पे करना है, हिस्टोरिकल मटेरियलिज्म पे आया, आपने मार उसे क्रिटिक सब कर दिया, लास्ट में कोई तो कॉन्टेम्पररी रेलेवेंस होगा ना हिस्टोरिकल मटेरियलिज्म पे, तो आप ये कह सकते हो कि डिस्पाइट द क्रिटिसिज्म इट इज स्टिल होल्डिंग अ कॉन्टेम्पररी रेलेवेंस, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, और एक कॉन्टेम्पररी एग्जाम्पल देकर कंक्लूड कर दो. दिस शोज दैट यू नो योर थ्योरी ऑल्सो एंड यू नो द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द थ्योरी, एंड इफ यू नो द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ थ्योरी दैट मीन्स योर कॉन्सेप्ट्स आर क्लियर. Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है. फाइनली ये कुछ बेसिक पॉइंट्स हैं जो यूज किए जा सकते हैं. जैसे सपोज करो कैपिटलिज्म के कंपैरिजन पे क्वेश्चन आ जाए, बहुत कॉमन है, मार्क्स और वेबर. तो फाइनल कंक्लूजन, टू मार्क्स कैपिटलिज्म वाज रूटेड इन रैशनैलिटी, फॉर वेबर इट इज अ रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ रैशनैलिटी. सुसाइड पे आ जाए, सुसाइड एज अ सोशल फैक्ट इज एन इलस्ट्रेशन ऑफ डर्कहाइम्स व्यू ऑन सोसाइटी एंड मेथोडोलॉजी. सपोज करो हिस्ट्री और सोशियोलॉजी पे कोई भी क्वेश्चन आ जाए, हम इससे एंड कर सकते हैं. History is past sociology and sociology is present history. Or the statement history without sociology has no fruit and sociology without history has no root. Similarly, science या religion पे आ जाए, या फिर Marx theory of class struggle has little empirical support. However, in terms of the heuristic impact, it has been very influential. Is it making sense? Standard conclusion है, prepare it beforehand. Is that making sense? ठीक? Finally, आई वॉज थिंकिंग कि क्या सोर्स बताऊँ, कैसे कराऊँ, बट फिर मैंने सोच लिया, मन बना लिया कि मेरे को यही बोलना है कि कोई भी एक स्टैंडर्ड सोर्स, बिकॉज आई एम अंडरस्टैंडिंग योर प्रॉब्लम, टाइम कम है, टू मच ऑफ कवरेज हो जाता है, जीएस मैनेज करना है, एसए मैनेज करना है, एथिक्स अपने आप में बवाल बना हुआ है, फिर ऑप्शन भी आ जाता है. सो इन दैट कॉन्टेक्स्ट आई विल जस्ट से वन थिंग, स्टिक टू वन सोर्स. But then I will make a request, that is not the content only to be prepared. उस source को base बना के you have to create your own content. बस इतना कर लेना. अगर एक source चुन रहे हो तो note making आपको डिटेल में करनी है. और आप कोई भी कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट का नोट उठाना चाहो वो कर सकते हो. अच्छा, एक और चीज़ देखो, सिर्फ रिक्वेस्ट है, मतलब नहीं करो तो भी चलेगा. हैरोलॉम्बस जो ब्लू बुक थी, ठीक है, पूरी नहीं, लेकिन अगर लगता है कि टाइम है, मैं बताती हूँ हैरोलॉम्बस की प्रॉब्लम क्या है. हैरोलॉम्बस की प्रॉब्लम इज नॉट द अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द इंग्लिश, द प्रॉब्लम इज द फॉन्ट साइज. वो इतना अनोइंग हो जाता है कि दैट इज व्हाई यू डोंट फील लाइक रीडिंग इट. बट ट्रस्ट मी, आई एम टेलिंग इट विथ माई एक्सपीरियंस. मैंने अपने फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में 2010 में जो चीज़ें हैरोलॉम्बस से पढ़ी थी ना, वो मुझे आज भी कंठस्थ है. मतलब मैं ऐसे बता सकती हूं कि पावर वॉज डिफाइंड बाय वेबर, देयर वर टू इम्प्लीकेशन, कांस्टेंट एंड वेरिएबल. वेरिएबल वॉज फॉलोड बाय टैलकॉट पार्सन. हाउ टैलकॉट पार्सन's approach was later followed by classical pluralism, where there were some aspects which were accepted and on basis of nature of the power या sectional interest and role of state they differed. Then classic pluralism was being criticized, which gave rise to the concept of elite pluralism. बिल्कुल इसी chronology में दे रखा है. जो चीजें तब पढ़ी थी वो आज भी याद है, क्योंकि इतने अच्छे से समझाया है कि कोई और किताब. कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं जो अगर समय मिले, जैसे उसका फर्स्ट चैप्टर, ठीक है, दैट इज पर्सपेक्टिव्स, टाइम मिले तो पढ़ना. देयर इज अ चैप्टर ऑन सोशियोलॉजिकल थ्योरी, लास्ट चैप्टर, टाइम मिले पढ़ो. देयर इज अ टॉपिक मेथडोलॉजी. जितने अच्छे से मेथडोलॉजी विद एग्जाम्पल्स हैरोलॉम्बस समझाता है, एक बार में समझ आ जाए ना, सो इट बिकम्स ईजियर. उसके अलावा आप ये कर सकते हो, जो स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन वाला टॉपिक है, जो पॉलिटिक्स वाला टॉपिक है और रिलीजन वाला टॉपिक है, उसमें सिर्फ वो थ्योरीज कर लो जिन पे से क्वेश्चन पूछे जा चुके हैं. दैट्स इट. सो बेसिकली दिस मच इज सपोज टू बी डन फॉर हैरोलॉम्बस. और अगर कोई कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट वगैरह है जहां ये ऑलरेडी कवर्ड है, तब पढ़ने की आपको जरूरत नहीं है. उसके अलावा आप नितिन सांगवान फॉलो करो, आप इग्नू फॉलो करो, दैट्स टोटली योर चॉइस. बट इफ देयर इज समवन हु इज टोटली अ फ्रेशर, देन आई वुड सजेस्ट कि स्टार्ट विद द एनसीईआरटी. दैट रीड योर एनसीईआरटीज फर्स्ट, क्लास 11th and class 12th, and then you can proceed. As far as paper 2 is concerned, paper 2 के लिए बस I will suggest one thing, that refer to any content which is available in the market, ठीक है, because it would not be possible या तो टॉपिक वाइज पूरी पूरी बुक नहीं पढ़नी. अब जैसे मॉडर्नाइजेशन ऑफ इंडियन ट्रेडिशन है, स्टैंडर्ड क्वेश्चन आता है उससे, ठीक है, या सोशल बैकग्राउंड ऑफ इंडियन नेशनलिज्म, स्टैंडर्ड क्वेश्चन आता है. तो आइदर यू रीड द बुक and try to extract the content, it is too taxing. Let's not do it. Just pick up any standard material which is available in the market. So section A, जो part A और part B है of your sociology paper 2, that can be done from the any content which is available in the market. But for part C, you have to put in the effort. कि जो भी आपके syllabus में topic दे रखे हैं, उन हर एक टॉपिक पे एटलीस्ट 150 वर्ड्स का राइटअप आपके पास तैयार होना चाहिए, along with sociological perspective. Is it making sense for everyone? That's the standard way of preparing. Is it clear? ठीक है. Next important aspect is, after we are done with all of this, then whenever you get time, but please do join a test series. And if you ask my opinion, 2 test series should be joined as far as optional is concerned. One should be joined during this period, which will be extending, let us say, up to February, ठीक है. And उसमें आप sectional test दो, जो भी आपका मन. लेकिन एक test series होती है जो prelims और मेंस के बीच में होती है, और दोनों का पर्पस अलग है. यहाँ पे आप आंसर राइटिंग सीखते हो, और जो प्रीलिम्स और मेंस के बीच की टेस्ट सीरीज होती है, वहां पे आप अपने आप को गेज करते हो कि टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट यू आर प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस एग्जामिनेशन. वहां पे आप आंसर राइटिंग नहीं सीखते. व्हाट इफ यू हैव रिटन अ टेस्ट आफ्टर योर प्रीलिम्स रिजल्ट, यू हैव क्लियर्ड, यू रोट योर फर्स्ट टेस्ट एंड यू हैव परफॉर्म बैडली. कंटेंट की भी कमी है और आंसर राइटिंग की भी कमी है. उस समय पैनिक स्टेज नहीं आ जाएगी, सिर्फ 2 महीना रह गया, फिर मैं बताती हूँ क्या होगा, आप टेस्ट ही नहीं लिखोगे. आप कहोगे कि इस बार कोर्स खत्म करके बस किसी तरह पहुंच जाते हैं, फिर देखेंगे. That's a very human nature and that has been repeated by most of the aspirant. That is why only handful of clear. Because majority of us are trapped in this cycle. So let's not do that. So wherever, but do join a test series and gauge yourself at 2 level. This time period is the best. अभी भी बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे होंगे जो ये सोचेंगे प्रीलिम्स का टाइम आ रहा है, ठीक है, लेकिन आई वुड सजेस्ट, अगर एक बार भी पहले प्रीलिम्स दिया है, फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट होगा, ठीक है, अगर फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट है तो भी आई वुड सजेस्ट कि एटलीस्ट टिल 31st of December यू हैव टाइम. सो फॉर 2 months एटलीस्ट यू कैन कवर 1 पेपर, डन एंड डस्टेड. टेस्ट सीरीज ज्वाइन करने से ना डिसिप्लिन आ जाता है. मैं आपको एक बात बताती हूँ, आप रोज कितना भी पढ़ो, बट आपको पता है संडे को टेस्ट है, द लेवल ऑफ प्रिपरेशन विल चेंज. अब आप चीजें याद करने लगोगे, क्योंकि आपको वहां जाके रिप्रोड्यूस करनी है. आप मन में ऑर्गेनाइज करने लगोगे पॉइंट कि इसके बाद ये लिखना है, ये लिखना है, ऐसे करना है. लेकिन ऐसे क्या होता है, आप रोज बस पन्ने पलट रहे हो, अच्छा ये ऐसे हो जाएगा, ये ऐसे कर लेंगे, वैसे कर लेंगे. सो दैट मेक्स यू मोर डिसिप्लिन, मोर ऑर्गेनाइज्ड इन योर अप्रोच. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है. But finally, I would just like to show, let me just see if I have access. I'll just show you topper script if there is any. We'll just see if it is satisfying the demand. You don't have to focus on the content, you have to focus more on the structure, because content here might be very different from this. Read the question. The union of anthropology and sociology is considered to be desirable and favorable despite their distinctive areas of specialization. Anthropology is the study of primitive pre-industrial societies, while sociology primarily concerns itself with the study of complex modern industrial societies. Difference between the anthropology and sociology. Why we are starting with the difference? Because it said despite their distinctive area. Then the person said society is being studied, the method of study, that's the subheading. Research design, the person is trying to, I told you na parameters pe contrast hota hai, theek hai. Now, sign posted, जो टॉपिक पूछा है उसको कहीं पे भी पैराफ्रेज करो so that it shows that you are answering the question. Despite these differences, there is union between the two fields. Then the person has written the points where the union can be established. And finally, with lesser number of primitive societies existing due to increased globalization, union of anthropology and sociology is considered much desirable. Is it making sense? ठीक है? Last year rank 13. There is this one script. This person used to use 2-color pen. And a very nice presentation. I'll just arrange the font size and then you can read. Most of the answers were decently written. I just wanted to show you one particular answer. Just give me 1 minute. If you can just see, the person has tried to incorporate the diagrams wherever there has been a, देखो. I'm generally showing कि जहाँ पे भी possibility है, diagram दिए गए हैं, ठीक है? ये देखो. Ulrich Beck का concept of risk society, Pakulski and Waters, death of class, Beck and Baudrillard, wherever it is possible. Templates हैं, तैयार होते हैं तो application easy हो जाता है. Just give me 1 minute. I wanted to show a particular, here. The process of embourgeoisement is antithetical to the concept of proletarization and class in itself. Critically analyze. The concept of embourgeoisement was initially propounded by Max Weber as a reaction to Marxian theory of polarization. Concept of proletarization, Marx in his Communist Manifesto, whatever, then factors leading to proletarization. ठीक है? The factors have been written. The process of proletarization. How pauperization, immiserization is happening, and finally it is leading to polarization of classes. Class in itself is becoming class for itself. Then process of embourgeoisement, increasing specialization, emergence of expansion of middle class. Perspective of Dahrendorf. Margaret Stassi's perspective, example of Indian middle class, that is the current example. And then finally, the overall conclusion. Did you see the incorporation of diagram in writing the answer? Okay. Did you see how the subheadings were made use of? Okay. And did you see the clarity in the expression and the presentation? This is the basic requirement which is supposed to be followed. Is it making sense for everyone? Okay. Now, on this note, do we still have any doubt as far as answer writing is concerned? Will you try attempting or follow the strategy that we discussed? Okay. Next important thing, very soon we would be uploading, that would be available on the Telegram channel. I think after Diwali, that I have already said, we would be uploading, but this PPT would be uploaded in the description box. below the video. So just go through the answers, whatever are available in the PPT. I'm not saying that, do we understand that there is no model answer? That has been written from the perspective. Let us suppose that I approach the question in this manner and I thought that this question can be answered like this. Your approach can be different, absolutely no issue. But just keep in mind whether it is addressing the demand of the question or not. Is it making sense for everyone? Okay? So on this note, can we conclude? Okay? Just make sure that you apply whatever strategies we are discussing and let's see whether it makes a difference or not. Okay, let's do one thing. Just try to apply. Okay? Or फिर देखना within a month, you will be studying sociology for next 1-2 months at least. Okay? Just try to apply the strategy, making the flow chart, trying to prepare the content, adding some more dimensions, contemporary relevance, and just see if it has made any difference in your approach to the question, your presentation or your content. If there has been a slight improvement also, this is worth your effort. Is it clear? Okay? So on this note, we conclude the session.